Welcome, movie fans. Thanks for joining us for episode 99 of Reading Between the Reels. If you're a new listener, we're so glad you found us. And if you've been enjoying the show, please subscribe and tell someone about us. Post on X or Facebook, write an iTunes review, or just recommend the show to a friend. I'm Craig Dickinson, and today on the show, I'll be sharing the last in a series of Star Wars conversations between my English classes and some very special guests. If you missed our previous episodes featuring Jeff McGee and Din from F105, or the one featuring Dan Zare and Ross Holleben, we encourage you to check those out as well. But this episode features three great guests. Today, we have for you Tom Gross from Teachers in the Dungeon, Anthony King from Force Ghost Conversations, and Aaron Harris from Star Wars Reactions.
What was your favorite Star Wars movie?
Oh, favorite Star Wars movie. Man, that's always a tough one. But I'm going to tell you right now, as of today, sitting here at 1 o'clock my time, it's Rogue One. I just love the way Rogue One sets up the whole original trilogy. We get to see Darth Vader in a very raw mood at the end of that film. And it's a great thrilling story that even someone who's not a Star Wars fan could get into. That's why I love that one.
How did Princess Leia remember her mother?
How did Princess Leia remember her mother? Yeah, you know what? That's a great question. I think it's like one of those things where you've heard her spoken about so much, and people have described her and talked about her that way, that she has those feelings. Plus, she does have the Force with her. And so I think there may be even some feelings, emotional feelings that she has of her. And so I suspect those are the ways in which Princess Leia remembers her mother.
Okay.
Great question.
In the Phantom Menace, it says that Qui-Gon Jinn believes a lot in fate, but then why does he spend so much time manipulating things?
Wow, yeah, that's a good question too. I have to ask you a follow-up question. Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Yeah. Can you tell me something that you think that he manipulated in the Phantom Menace? Or maybe some of your friends can help you?
He manipulated the dice when trying to free Anakin.
That's a great one. Indeed. So I think when Qui-Gon Jinn talks about fate, I think he's talking about like big picture things, like encountering Anakin on Tatooine while they're, running from the Federation. I think small things like betting leaves too much out there, and so just to be sure, he navigated it that way. But it also kind of gives us the idea that the Jedi were kind of on a path where they were trying to control too much, perhaps. And that's what leads to the Clone Wars and to the fall of the Jedi. So maybe he's demonstrating a little bit of that lack of faith at that point too. So that's a great question, though. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Luke and Anakin each are willing to risk their own lives in order to save their friends. Who do you think is braver?
Luke and Anakin. Oh, who's braver? Yeah. You know what? I'm a Luke Skywalker fan, and Luke Skywalker never went to the dark side, whereas Anakin did. And so I think Luke was much braver to stand up against the dark side and quite frankly, against Anakin as Darth Vader. And so I see that as true bravery when he is able to stand up for everything he believes in. Even when he is in dire peril. Yeah, fun question. Awesome. Thanks.
Yep.
Okay. What are your thoughts on Anakin turning to the dark side?
Well, it's funny. Every time I watch that happen, I keep thinking that maybe he won't. So it's disappointing, it's really disappointing, but it's just the will of the Force, I suppose. The Jedi didn't trust him. I wonder oftentimes if Mace Windu would have let him go with them to arrest Palpatine if things would have turned out a little bit differently. But certainly, how do I feel about him going to the dark side? Oh, it's crushing and it's heart-wrenching and it makes me super sad. Even when I knew it was going to happen, we knew that he was going to become Darth Vader when we watched that, and it still is just it's tragic because he's such after watching the Clone Wars and really Attack of the Clones and the prequel trilogies, we really come to like Anakin and think that he's a good guy. But yeah, he just became succumbed by the dark side. So awesome question. Thanks.
What's your favorite order to watch the movies in?
I love it. I have to say I am a traditionalist, so I watch it 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9.
Why do you think the Imperial officers are more afraid of the Emperor than Darth Vader?
Hmm. I honestly I feel like they're terrified of both. But the Emperor is the Emperor, and Darth Vader can be seen, and he's face to face with these officers on a regular basis, and so they kind of become more comfortable with him. I mean, look at in A New Hope when they're sitting around the table and Vader force chokes the one officer, but he was that one officer was willing to challenge him and say, "Oh, your old wizardry is old fashioned, and we need to get with the program." And he's force chokes. I don't think they would do that to the Emperor because he keeps remains separated from everybody else. He's more legendary through what they've heard about him, and they know that he's there and he's present, but nobody really ever sees him. So I think a lot of it has to do with those sorts of things.
When did you first start watching Star Wars?
Oh, I was 7 years old when the original movie came out in 1977. And so my grandma took me to see to the theater to see it. And so ever since then, I've been a huge Star Wars fan because that after that movie, my parents took me to the toy store and I bought a few action figures. And then I discovered the trading cards, and I was sunk. I was in. So yeah, long, long time I've been following Star Wars. 1977. Thanks.
What do you think about Yoda's defeat to Palpatine and his subsequent exile?
Yeah. Um, I really, I really didn't know, going into that battle, we really had no idea how that was gonna go down. I honestly thought that I thought it was gonna be the other way around. I thought the Emperor was going to escape from Yoda, not the other way. And so it was an incredible. It's one of the most memorable battles, if you ask me, especially when they make it into the Senate, and the Emperor is just throwing those Senate seats and like hovercraft at Yoda. It's amazing. It's an amazing scene, and the exile is, you know, there's something to be said. I mean, think about all the characters in Star Wars, from the movies to the animated TV shows, of characters that go into some sort of an exile where they remove themselves from the focus of everything. I even think like in Rebels, Captain Rex and his crew, they're on exile and they're just sort of living their life on that old AT-AT like machine. But yeah, Yoda going into exile made a lot of sense because he had a lot of thinking to do because he was in charge of the Jedi Order when they were destroyed, and he's part of the Jedi Order that didn't see the dark side rising. And so it made a lot of sense, and it was a good thing that he went into exile, because who knows where Luke Skywalker would have been without him to train him on Dagobah. And so it was a difficult time for sure. But in the whole grand scheme of things, when you look at the whole Skywalker saga, at least the saga that we know right now, it was necessary. And so Yeah, it didn't go to the way I thought it would when I was, I don't know how old I was when that came out, but I certainly thought it was going to go a different way. Thanks.
Hello. I just wanted to ask, what did you think about Anakin becoming a Force ghost in Return of the Jedi? Like, do you think that separates him from Darth Vader as a person? And do you think it's justified, especially after Order 66?
I certainly do. And here's why. Um, uh, so Anakin shows up because Luke Skywalker found the good in him. Luke Skywalker liberated Anakin from the dark side in that, when they're on the Death Star and Darth Vader saves him and throws the Emperor down that pit of some sort, and so he redeems him. Luke redeems Anakin, and so absolutely, I think he should be there, and he definitely is separated from Darth Vader because Darth Vader is the dark side and he's evil, and Anakin is not, and Luke pulled that out. So that's an awesome question, though. Thanks.
All right, thank you.
You bet.
Why does Luke finally give in to his anger?
Why does Luke finally give in to his anger? Oh, when he defeats Darth Vader.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that he did give in to. If you think, okay, so think about that scene, and when he has Darth Vader down on the ground and he's hammering him with that lightsaber, and he cuts off Vader's hand, he doesn't actually kill him. He takes his lightsaber and he throws it to the side, and he says, "I will not become what my father was," or something like that. And he steps away, and that's when the Emperor gets all sassy and he brings out his Force lightning that surprised all of us in 1984, 83. And so really, who kills Darth Vader as a Sith is his own master, and that's the Emperor. Because his energy flows through him when he picks him up and he throws him over. I feel like that killed sort of the mechanical part of Darth Vader, which puts him in peril, and so that the human side died. But I feel like Darth Vader or Luke Skywalker didn't give in to his anger, and he used the peace, and he used the force of the good side to relinquish when he needed to. So that's a great question, though. Thanks.
All right.
Why do you think Palpatine saved Anakin and encased him in black armor?
I don't know. It's difficult to tell whether it's the dark side taking effect and he's being lured. It's difficult to tell whether, I feel like Anakin had been manipulated and sort of convinced that that Palpatine was a good guy. Not a good guy, but he shouldn't have been killed. Um, it's tricky because Anakin also, he said he should be arrested and he should be put on trial. And so he's really confused at this point because he knows that the guy that he's been trusting all this time is now a Sith Lord. And he's also been shunned by the Jedi. Mace Windu says, "You stay here and you meditate while we go take care of this problem." Basically saying you're not good enough to help us on this, when it's Anakin who uncovered Palpatine as the Sith Lord. And then he's confused because he wants to do good. He wants to do the right thing. You should put him on trial. He deserves to be on trial. And Mace Windu's like, "No, that will not work. He'll continue to grow stronger," and blah blah blah. So I think the reason he lets Palpatine die is I think it's for those reasons. I think he was confused by a lot of things, and I think he also had the draw of the dark side on him.
A New Hope in the first movie, why is the film set a long time ago?
Like a long, long time ago in a galaxy far,
Yeah.
far away. I think in storytelling, when we think about mythology and heroes and gods and things like that, that's so ancient to us, and it's thousands of years old. And so I think when George Lucas put this together, he wanted it to be kind of a modern mythology. And so I'm pretty sure that is why he puts that statement at the very beginning, a long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, kind of puts us in the mindset as viewers of a story, or those who are going to take in a story, to kind of settle in, and we're going to learn something that has a lesson built into it, and it's an old tale. And so I think that's why they put it that way. That's an awesome question. It's not one I think of often, but yeah, that's a cool question.
Okay. Why do you think that Luke burned Vader's body?
This kind of goes back to the question that was asked earlier about the Force Ghost. I feel like when he burns the body of Darth Vader, it's a symbolic gesture of a passage of rites, a passage of death, a funeral kind of thing, memory. It's all that kind of stuff. But I also feel like it's symbolic of putting the dark side away, and saying, yes, he was my father, but my father was Darth Vader, but here I've removed him from that. And so I think it's a symbolic gesture to kind of take the dark side out of the memory of Anakin Skywalker.
Why do you think the Jedi Council ultimately let Obi-Wan train Anakin as a Jedi?
Well, let's put it this way. I certainly am glad they did, because of the rest of the story. But the reason I think they did that is to honor Qui-Gon Jinn. Qui-Gon Jinn was, I don't want to say he was a troublemaker, but he certainly was sort of a rebel of the Jedi. And he'd convinced them. I also feel like they also knew that Anakin was powerful in the Force. And so who better to train Anakin at this point than the person they trust the most, and that was Obi-Wan Kenobi. They knew that Obi-Wan was a rule follower. They knew that Obi-Wan was a loyal Jedi. They also knew that Obi-Wan was powerful, and so I think that's why they had Obi-Wan or Anakin become Obi-Wan's Padawan.
Tom, thank you so much. That was great. Really appreciate you spending this afternoon with us.
Of course. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. What a fun project.
Thanks, bud. Have a great day.
All right. You too. Bye.
Bye.
Huh.
Hi there.
Who's your favorite character?
So my favorite character in Star Wars is Anakin Skywalker, and that also, plays into the Darth Vader of it all. But I think that he is the protagonist across all the 6 main films of the Skywalker saga, as one might say. But also in the sequel trilogy, it's his legacy as well. So I would say all of that.
Hi.
Hey there.
What are your impressions of Darth Vader?
Well, he's a terrifying menace and a horrifying villain in every right, but a very misunderstood and conflicted character, as we'll see in the original trilogy there. So definitely top of the top when it comes to bad guys in the galaxy.
Hello.
Hey there.
What do you think would have happened if Anakin never joined the dark side?
Well, that's a great what if. I think he probably would have left the Jedi Order because he would not have been so fond of his attachment to Padme. And he probably would have raised Luke and Leia, because I assume that Padme doesn't die in this version. And they live off in the wilds of Naboo, raising their family.
Hey, what's up?
Hello.
All right. So, in your opinion, during episode 6, why is it that you think the Jawas helped the Republic?
You mean the Ewoks, I presume there?
Yeah, the Ewoks. My bad.
Well, I think it's they saw that the Empire was just infringing on their space and eventually would have gotten to their village itself. So, they had to defend themselves and their territory and their home.
If you were a Jedi, what would you want your lightsaber color to be?
Blue. Actually, if you go to Disney World or Disneyland, you can create your own, and I've done that, and mine's sitting right over there.
Cool.
Do you think that it's okay to lie to someone to spare their feelings the same way that Obi-Wan lied to Luke about his father and his sister?
I think so in the context. And in that context, I think that's correct, because if Luke had been told all this at the same time, he was very much a kid that would have ran back to the farm and said, I need to shut myself off from all this. It's too much all at once. He just would have been gone crazy with that. So I think from a certain point of view, those also were truths that he shared as well at the same regard, but they're not full truths. So there's a little bit of a lie in there. So it's just that gray area. And I think that comes with the wisdom of Obi-Wan, why he chooses to do what he does at the various times that he does. And he learned from experience, of course, with Anakin too over his time.
Hey, do you
Hey
think
there.
Anakin would have turned out differently if he was trained by Yoda instead of Obi-Wan?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. He would have turned out differently for sure. Um, in what ways? I think Yoda would have been a bit more hands off because I think Yoda just has so much to do in his role as a master of kind of the whole Jedi Council itself. So I think Anakin would have had a bit more free reign to do stuff and probably wouldn't have been so testy, let's just say, with his master, perhaps. And maybe that would have led to a different outcome, but who knows?
Yeah, that makes sense. Hi,
Yeah, there.
what is the importance of the colors of the lightsabers?
Well, I know obviously blue and green signify good guys, and then red signifies uh, dark side users or Sith potentially. Um, I think those are to interpretation what those specifically mean. I know in grander Star Wars stories and legends, they had full meanings for what the different lightsabers mean that I'm not fully aware of or privy to. I think they just look cool and they're a very easy way to differentiate between good and bad guys.
What is your favorite Star Wars movie?
See, my favorite Star Wars movie is Revenge of the Sith, and that's a variety of reasons, mostly because I was 10 at the time that I was able to see it in the theaters. And because I got to see it with my uncle, which was a great experience for me, but also just to see the culmination of this grand saga come to a close at that time, and to see how those stories that were lined up when I was a kid then eventually lined up with the stories that were from 20 years before at that time. So it was really cool just to see the story come to conclusion. I enjoyed seeing the Anakin Obi-Wan fight, which was pretty awesome. And just a great way to cap off a wonderful story.
Why does Mace Windu have a purple lightsaber?
Uh, because he asked for it. Samuel L. Jackson, the actor. But and also I think George Lucas, the director, obliged him on that one too. So that's the real world answer for that to a large degree. But also, I think just to have him stand out too as a cool and differentiating Jedi compared to the others that we'd seen before.
Thanks.
Hi.
Hey there.
What do you think would happen if Qui-Gon Jinn didn't die?
Now that's a wonderful question. I think that if Qui-Gon doesn't die, then he takes on Anakin as his Padawan learner. And I think that the animosity between Obi-Wan, who also kind of takes on Anakin as a begrudging Padawan in many ways, as the dying wish of his master in his arms. He never really wanted Anakin to begin with. He called him a pathetic life form when in the Phantom Menace when he first kind of realizes that he's coming along the journey here. So I think the compassion and understanding and just wisdom of Qui-Gon overall would have led to a very different outcome in the Star Wars galaxy as we know it. But hey, stories go and people, these things happen and changes happen for a reason. And Obi-Wan was meant to be with Anakin, and that's how we get to where we're at in Return of the Jedi.
Thank you.
When Anakin destroys the droid control ship, do you think it was luck or force?
Probably a little bit of both. I think I think the Force certainly plays into his ability to fly the ship so well without piloting ever to that point in his life, from what we really know. And to be in such a grand space battle at that time as well is something that I think only his Force sensitivity can help with. But going inside the Trade Federation ship at the end of the Phantom Menace is certainly, I think, an act of luck and just kind of touching on some buttons. Even, he thought he was trying to just destroy some droids that eventually turn on the autopilot to then head up into space to begin with was a lot of luck to begin with as well. So all that kind of, you can't have one without the other.
Okay.
Why do you think Han Solo doesn't believe in the Force?
Probably because he didn't interact with it at any point in his life. Seeing is believing to a large degree. So once he sees Luke and the adventures that they go on and seeing the Force in front of him, that's a great way to make a converter out of anybody. So that I would say that's why.
Thank you.
Do you think that Anakin truly loved Padme?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, and that is his undoing. Is loving her to a point that he wasn't able to let go, and that leads him down a dark path.
Why are the Imperial officers more afraid of the Emperor than Darth Vader?
Oh, because Darth Vader could, go toe to toe with him on in a force battle. If they decide to go with lightsabers or anything like that. Also, they have just a general relationship with each other about loyalty, about and all that as master and apprentice that Imperial officers just don't. So, their lives can be tossed aside. They're cannon fodder. They can be tossed aside and replaced very easily. Their job's a bit more on the line than Vader's is.
If you could pick a Jedi Master to like teach you how to be a Jedi, who would it be and why?
Yeah, it'd be Qui-Gon. And that would be because I love his approach to just the Force in general. He seems to be a person that just kind of lives in the moment, lives in the present, which I think is very important as just a general philosophy overall. His kindness and compassion is clearly at the forefront of his being. And those are all qualities I would want in any teacher, master, anything like that.
In your opinion, at what point in the films do you believe that Luke actually becomes a Jedi?
I think I think that Luke fully becomes a Jedi when he throws down his lightsaber at the end of Return of the Jedi. I think that's his final trial, his final test, and at that point, he says he chooses the pacifist lifestyle that accompanies a Jedi, and he is willing to lay down his life and trusts in the faith of his friends and his father and all that. And once he does accomplishes all that, then he's, in my opinion, at least a full Jedi.
Why do you think Jedis use lightsabers and not like blasters?
Oh, I mean, it's an elegant weapon, I think, and there's probably some historical reason for it at a certain point. I would say probably, there's a ritual that comes with creating the lightsaber, and usually it's done at a focal point of a Padawan's training. So I think when all that is said and done, like it's a part of the religion of the Jedi in a way.
If you had to be stuck on an island with one character, who would it be and why?
Who would it be and why? Oh my gosh. I think I'm gonna pick Wicket the Ewok just because I feel like he would be such a great partner in going to hunt down the various things to find on the island. So whether it be like food or supplies or stuff like that, and with his small stature, he could get into areas that I wouldn't be able to personally. Also, as long as we're befriended, a cute teddy bear at any time is always a good thing to have when you're in time of distress.
What do you think the impact on the story would be if Luke and Leia were not separated at birth?
Ooh, that's a wonderful what if as well. I think that they wouldn't be the same characters that they are, where we see them in at least in A New Hope. Um, who knows if they would have discovered their force sensitivity earlier, if they may have been caught by the Empire a lot earlier than that. I think it's a lot easier to keep that hidden when they're separated. Um, and then it depends which family do they go with? Do they both go with the Bail Organa and family and live on Alderaan as kind of the elite or wealthy, or do they stay with the Lars family in Tatooine and kind of grow up as moisture farmers? I mean, both of those could offer up very interesting prospects about their upbringing as well, but they're definitely not the same people as we see them in the original trilogy.
Yeah, that makes sense.
What do you think what would be different if Anakin had a father?
Sorry, say that again. I couldn't hear you.
What do you think would be different if Anakin had a father?
If Anakin had a father, I think it would have solved a lot of problems for Anakin if he had the right father figure. I think that's something he was always searching for throughout his entire life. And he eventually kind of found it in Qui-Gon, which I think is why he would have done such a better job training with Qui-Gon, rather than Obi-Wan. But then eventually he finds that kind of, at the time, warm and loving father source in Emperor Palpatine, who's there to give him a nice, encourage him, push him into certain directions that he wants to go to, be a listening ear to him, and then also give him that advice that Palpatine only wants for him to accomplish at the end. So I think if he had a father, he would have certainly not had to search for that in other figures throughout his entire Jedi career.
Do you think the Jedi Council, like not allowing Luke to become a master, like allowed him to like go to the dark side, or like made him want to go to the dark side?
Let's just say it certainly didn't. It did not help. Anakin was definitely at a point where he wanted more power and he wanted that influence and he wanted to take that next promotional step. And to see a barrier to that was another way to drive a wedge between him and the Jedi, that led to further manipulation by Palpatine in order to lead to his choice to join the dark side.
How much different would it be if Anakin survived against Obi-Wan and didn't have to go into his Darth Vader suit?
Yeah, this is another great question. So, are we saying in this instance that he defeats Obi-Wan and kills Obi-Wan?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So there's a great video game actually that explores this concept. So if you're interested, the Revenge of the Sith video game from 2005, after the movie came out, you can play as Anakin, and if you defeat Obi-Wan, you get an alternate ending where he doesn't go into the suit. And what he does is he then takes his new lightsaber and kills Emperor Palpatine, and then becomes the Emperor of the Galaxy in his own right. So that's what probably would happen.
I see. All right, thanks.
Why is Padme always in trouble?
Mostly just for the story plot point of it all. But also I think she is a person that is a go-getter and a character that needs to be boots on the ground when it comes to solving problems, and I admire that very much about her. And when that happens, you usually find yourself in tricky situations that you need help getting out of.
Nice.
What if Anakin didn't have nightmares about Padme dying?
Well, he would have been probably so worried about finding a way to save her life. So if that was the case, then he probably doesn't turn to the dark side, at least so quickly. Maybe there would have been other ways to manipulate him in the end. But that one was really the big straw that forced his hand there.
If Padme didn't get pregnant, do you think Anakin still would have turned to the dark side?
Yeah, probably. I'm not sure if the pregnancy was I think it was just Padme that was the reason. Like her potential death was the thing that he couldn't possibly like get over or let go. I don't think that the twins necessarily had anything to do with that. It's more just if Padme is in peril, he will do what he must in order to save her.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Anthony. Really, really appreciate it.
Absolutely, and then thanks to all the wonderful students for providing great questions and thoughtful ideas.
Good job, guys. All right, bud. Have a great day.
All right, take care. See ya.
Why do you think Darth Vader is obsessive Luke?
Obsessed with Luke? Oh, that's easy. It's one, it's his son, and two, it's his last connection to Padme. It's his last connection. It's the last. He just found out he has a connection to the woman he loved, and feels responsible for her death because he doesn't know, not 100% sure what happened to her. He just thinks he killed her. So he's obsessed with Luke because that is his connection to the woman he loves, and it's his son. So he wants that relationship.
When like near the end or whatever, how does Luke become a Jedi?
How does Luke become a Jedi? Well, besides his training on Dagobah, he really wasn't Jedi yet when he went and faced Vader the first time at Empire Strikes Back. But there's a journey between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi where we see where he matures. A lot of it's covered. There's a lot of it's covered in comic books and stuff, but you see a change in the character from the Empire Strikes Back and what we see in Return of the Jedi, and that growth and that maturity has grown him into being the Jedi that he ultimately is at the end of Return of the Jedi, and he ultimately crossed that line when he tossed that lightsaber away, and that was it. He was choosing peace rather than violence at that point.
Why does Han go back after Luke?
Why does Han go after Luke? Pretty much it's Han has a sense of loyalty that he tries to downplay. So he doesn't have a lot of friends, and a lot of his friends, like Lando, have tried to take advantage of him. And so with Luke, there's a connection that he feels with Luke that he doesn't have with anybody else. So Luke's in trouble. He's going to go help him because he knows that's what Luke would do for him.
Why can't the Jedi tell who Darth Sidious is?
Ooh, good one. Good one. That, you see, by the time of the Jedi in Revenge or throughout the prequels, the Jedi have gotten their 1,000 years of peace, and 1,000 years since they had seen a Sith. So they got comfortable, they got blind, and they got played. And Sidious came in and just manipulated them in the background subtly, and through that blindness, they were able to lead to their fall.
Hello.
Hello.
Why is the film set a long time ago?
Because it's in a galaxy far, far away. It takes time for the film to travel from one galaxy to another.
Oh. Okay.
No
Thank you.
clue why. No clue why. It just, that's how the maker made it. So
Why does Luke refuse to help Obi-Wan when he's been trying to leave?
that would be, I think, probably is a combination of loyalty to his aunt and uncle, and actually just fear of the unknown. He's not sure what he'd be getting into at that point. And he's always wanted to leave Tatooine, but now the actual prospect of leaving, it's uncomfortable and unsettling, like it would be for a lot of us if we have to walk into something new. And he has second thoughts. And unfortunately, when his world collapses, when he gets back home and finds his aunt and uncle dead, he has nothing holding him back at that point. So I think it was fear and loyalty.
What's your favorite Star Wars movie?
A New Hope. Easily A New Hope. I like the first one because that's what introduced us to the whole galaxy.
Why does Anakin turn to the dark side? Is he still a sympathetic character?
Ooh, good one. People will do some crazy things when they're in love. And when it comes to Anakin, he is obsessed and in love with Padme. But when you look at his history, he's had a lot of loss in that history. He lost Qui-Gon Jinn, who was like a father figure for him in A Phantom Menace. You have the loss of his mother when she died at the hands of the Sand People. So there's a lot of loss. And if you go into some of the more expanded stories with the Clone Wars, his loss of Ahsoka, he loses Ahsoka, his Padawan, his best friend, one of his best friends, and all those losses combined pushed him to the point that when he started having visions of Padme's death, he would do absolutely anything to prevent that from happening, including dabbling in the dark side to try to save her. And unfortunately, once he went down that path, it was too late. So does it make him a sympathetic character? In some ways, yes, I would say it does, because he who wouldn't do anything for someone that they love and care about? I know I would. I would do anything for my wife. If it unfortunately led me down a dark path, I'd hate to go that way, but if it meant her safety, I mean, we'll do what we got to do.
Why do you think Han doesn't believe in the Force?
Han had a very rough life. Growing up on Corellia on the streets, then of course in the Imperial Army, he had a very rough life. And a lot of people like Han, like a lot of people, when you have that rough of a life, it's, you don't believe in higher powers or in other things, because how can something all powerful and this overwhelming power, metaphysical power, be there if your life has been so hard? And I think that's where Han is with his disbelief in the Force. He even says, I've seen nothing to convince me there's an all powerful force that controls the galaxy. And that's because of the journey he led in his life.
How does Leia treat her rescuers?
How does Leia treat her rescuers? Well, obviously she treated them good because they stuck around and helped. I mean, Leia is a unique character. I love the character of Leia Organa because she is strong, she's powerful, she is in control. Even when she was captive on the Death Star, she controlled the situation as much as she could, and she didn't back down or show fear. So when it came time for her, when she was rescued, yes, the Han and Luke came in, they rescued her, but she ended up having to rescue them as well. They were trapped in the cell block, and it was Leia who got them out by taking him into the sewers. So it was Leia is unique in the fact that they rescue her, she acknowledged it, she treats them well and kind, but at the same point she's also that leader, and she got them just as out of that pickle just as much as they got her out.
In Return of the Jedi, why is the Emperor so obsessed with Luke taking Darth Vader's place?
Because he sees the opportunity to have a younger, stronger apprentice, essentially. Vader, aka Anakin, by that point, is more machine than man at this point. He's got no legs, he's got one arm, he's all robotics. He has to stay inside that life support suit. So if you can trade that in for a healthy young kid who you can train the way you want, but also is not powerful enough to overthrow you, he's going to cash in for the younger model.
How does Darth Vader know about Princess Leia?
Because Luke tells her inadvertently. He lets his thoughts drift to Leia when he's in that final fight on the Death Star, and Vader reads his emotions through the Force.
Why'd you start studying Star Wars?
Why? Oh, yeah. See, that's the first time I've been asked that question. For me, it's besides the fact that I enjoy the movies and enjoy the books and the shows. For me, it's been more about friendships. I actually watched it growing up. Then I got out of Star Wars for many years, and it wasn't until 2012 that a friend of mine took me to Star Wars weekends at Disney, and that just basically reminded me how much I enjoyed it. And it's because of that I got to meet a lot of people. I got into podcasting, got to meet your teacher. So it's been, to me, my love of Star Wars is because of the movies and stuff, but a lot of it's because of the friendships I've made because of the movies.
So you just had like one friendship made, or?
Oh no, I've got a lot of friends that I made from all over the country and all over the world. We've England, Australia. I got friends all over the world that I talk to on a regular basis because of Star Wars.
In The Emperor Strikes Back, what does it mean by the cave only contains what you bring with you? Like what you take with you?
Okay. Well, ultimately what that means is basically the test that he's going to see in the cave is going to be based on his thoughts and his and his mindset. So if he walks in expecting a fight, he's going to get a fight. If he walks in peacefully and just curious, he's going to see what's going on. Just look at look at the mirror image in Empire Strikes Back. He goes into the cave, he has his lightsaber, he ends up getting in a fight with Darth Vader. Whereas Rey in Rise of Skywalker ends up in a cave and she has no weapons with her, and she ends up seeing visions of her parents. So it's a given. Actually, that was Last Jedi, not Rise of Skywalker. Excuse me. But you get that mirror image there, and that makes a world of difference. It's in how you are tested by your mindset and your thoughts.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
What is the significance? Why a lightsaber over a blaster?
Why a lightsaber over a blaster? Because blasters are so uncivilized. To quote Kenobi. No, it's a matter of preference. With a lightsaber, a blaster tends to be more of an offensive weapon. If you pull a blaster, the only thing it's going to do is pull the trigger and shoot somebody. Whereas with the lightsaber, it can be more defensive. If somebody's attacking you, you can block. If you're trained enough, you can block the blaster bolts into somewhere safe so nobody gets hurt. It's more of a defensive versus offensive weapon. So that's why there's that distinction there.
Why might Uncle Owen be hesitant to let Luke have the farm, leave the farm?
Leave the farm?
Yeah.
Again, it's comes down to a sense of protection for Owen. Luke was trusted into his custody. He has raised him since he was a baby. He knows what happened to Anakin, to Luke's father, and the dangers, because he is Anakin's son. So he's definitely worried about him. So he doesn't want him to go out into the dangers of the galaxy, because outside of Tatooine, Tatooine's a dangerous place, but outside of there, the galaxy is large, vast, and even more dangerous. So I think his lack of not wanting him to leave, or his want of not wanting him to leave, is out of being a father figure for him. He wants what's best for him. He wants to protect him, and he can't do that if Luke leaves. And I think that's why he doesn't want him to go.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Who is your favorite character in the franchise?
Ooh, are we limiting this to just the movies, or are we going into
Just the movies.
just the movies? Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
If you had any color lightsaber, what would it be?
Any color lightsaber. I've always been partial to the blue lightsabers. Don't know why. Blue's always been my favorite color, so I've just always gone blue.
Okay.
What causes Vader to break away from the dark side and the control of the Emperor?
Love for his son. That's exactly what causes him to break away there at the end of Return of the Jedi. He sees Luke being tortured by the Emperor, and he finally realizes that there's probably more manipulating going on than not. So he doesn't want to see his son, his last connection to Padme, go away. So he steps in, and for the love of his son, gets rid of the Emperor.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Why did Anakin turn into the dark side?
Why did Anakin turn to the dark side? Well, that would be because he did not want to see anything happen to the love of his life. He wanted Padme to live. He had enough loss in his life that he wasn't going to risk losing the last person he had a connection to. So he gave anything and everything to keep her alive.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Why does the Emperor want Darth Vader to bring Luke to him?
He wants Luke so he can try to turn him to the dark side to ultimately be Vader's replacement.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Why did Yoda initially hide his identity from Luke?
All about testing Yoda is. It was basically he was giving Luke a test, seeing how he would react in unknown situation. He's in an unknown situation. He's facing all this crisis right now because his X-wing is sinking in the swamp and he's stranded now on the planet. So, what better way to test the son of Anakin Skywalker than play a ignorant creature of the land?
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Why does Darth Vader tell Luke that he's his father?
Why does he tell him? Because
Yeah.
he wants him to know. When Vader realizes, hey, that's my kid, I want to be with my kid, I'm going to try to get my kid with me, he's going to tell him, hey, you know what, you probably didn't hear, I am your father. It's not true what everybody else said. I am your father. Not necessarily to manipulate Luke, but to try to convince him to come in to his to join him, essentially.
What are your impressions of Order 660?
Impressions of Order 66?
Yeah.
Order 66, honestly, masterstroke of genius by Sidious. Heartbreaking for the Jedi. But it was, the more it's expanded out of the movies, because you see what you see in Revenge of the Sith, but in some of the shows and stuff, you see more fleshed out stories from different perspectives of Order 66. And it's very, honestly, very gut-wrenching at times to see what's happening across the galaxy during Order 66. So it's, hats off to Sidious for pulling it off. But when you see the Jedi you've watched falling, it hurts a little bit.
In Return of the Jedi, why does Luke finally give in to his anger?
Why does Luke give in to his anger? And I assume you're talking about at the end when he's fighting Vader, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. A lot of that has to do with protecting Leia, because his thoughts had just betrayed him. Vader now knows he has a sister. And so now Vader just threatened that if you don't turn, maybe she will. So at that point, he lets go. He gives in to some of his anger a little bit and attacks Vader, trying to save Leia. And what made him a Jedi is when he realized it, pulled back and tossed his lightsaber aside. He goes, no, I'm not giving in any further than what I have. And he stops.
In Return of the Jedi, why does Luke seem more confident?
Well, everybody gets more confident when they practice. So, of course, between Empire Strikes Back and what we see in Return of the Jedi, he's had a lot more practice. He's done some self-training. And so he has built his confidence up through in that time frame. A lot of that's filled in and outside of the movies, but it's definitely a confidence builder because he's had practice and he's had more training on his own.
Okay, Aaron, I kept you a little longer than I said initially, but we had a good rhythm going, so I appreciate you hanging out. But yeah, so that's thanks so much for joining us today.
Anytime, my friend. Anytime. Love. Good class, great questions.
Yeah, great job, everybody. Hey, so have a great day, my friend.
Take care, Craig. Talk to y'all later. Have a great day, guys.
So as we close, we just want to say thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to connect with us, you can find us on X and Facebook. Email us at readingbetweenreels@gmail.com or use the SpeakPipe app on our website. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe and tell a friend and support us by writing an iTunes review. One last thing. Our next episode will be a very special one. It's our 100th episode. So we're going to celebrate that milestone with some special guests and share with you all some exciting news about the future of the show. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss it.